I remember it vividly, even though so many of the little details now feel like they belong to some distant dream. The year was 1982, and I was working as a physical therapist in a bustling medical facility in Alaska. I was only 32, with 2 young children who were the very center of my universe. Back then, my spouse spent long stints working on an oil field far from home, so I juggled parenthood with a demanding career in healthcare. Life didn't feel simple, but it had a certain rhythm. I believed everything was manageable if I stayed strong. Little did I know that an ordinary workday would spark a chain of events that would change me forever. I had been dealing with persistent back trouble. A prior surgery already existed in my history, so when the pain flared up again, doctors tried conservative treatments first. But none of the easy methods, rest, anti-inflammatories, and physical therapy sessions, did the trick. My discomfort escalated until surgery became the singular path forward. As any physical therapist might, I worried about my future in my chosen profession. Would a more extensive spinal operation limit my ability to help others? That thought weighed heavily. On the morning of the procedure, I was a swirl of adrenaline, nerves, and hope. Before I left for the hospital, I remember pausing in my living room, sending out a silent wish that the operation would prove successful. Ideally just a simple laminectomy, so I could continue my professional duties without a major disruption. I had asked various friends, acquaintances, and fellow congregants to keep me in their thoughts. Please, I thought, just let this surgery be minimal. My children, 9 and 6 years old, clung to me, eyes filled with a mixture of fear and trust. I reassured them that I'd be back to my energetic self very soon. But something in my core sensed this day would bring more than just a medical procedure. Entering the hospital's surgical wing felt like stepping onto a massive stage, with bright overhead lights shining on gurneys, nurse stations, and seemingly endless corridors. I was whisked through the hall with my family trailing behind. My spouse attempted to comfort our 2 kids before they had to separate from me in the preoperative area. My heart pounded with that steady mix of anxiety and cautious optimism, a testament to the fragile nature of what was about to happen. Moments later, I found myself in an operating room with a medical team bustling around me. The anesthesia mask approached. Then, darkness. Suddenly, completely unexpectedly, I discovered that I was awake, alarmingly alert, and no longer confined to my body. My immediate experience wasn't of pain or grogginess. Instead, I seemed to be hovering up near the ceiling, looking down on a chaotic scene. The lead surgeon's voice, furious or fearful I couldn't tell, echoed through the space. Instruments clanked, someone shouted orders, and I saw staff members rush around. It was all happening beneath me, as though I was an impartial observer. My vantage point let me see my own body lying on the operating table. Shocked, I realized that the pale figure in the center of the melee was me. I remember feeling confusion and intrigue more than horror. Wait, am I gone? Because I'm up here and that's my body down there. In a flash, my perspective shifted. My sense of identity still resided in this odd, floating vantage point, but I recognized that the body on the table was mine, ghostly pale, almost unrecognizable. That poor figure looks so limp, I thought, but it's me. My mind raced with questions. Am I dead? If I am, why do I feel so conscious, so completely aware? And how do I let my family know that the real me is somehow okay? The possibility that I might have died triggered immediate concern for my loved ones waiting somewhere in the hospital. I wanted to rush to them, to shout, "It's fine, I'm still here, don't cry or fear, I haven't vanished." The moment that desire crystallized, I felt myself move. It wasn't walking. There was no sense of feet touching floors. Instead, it was as if my entire being glided effortlessly through the wall. That's right, straight through solid material as though it was made of vapor. The hallway on the other side was eerily familiar from earlier that morning. The typical hustle of a hospital environment played out. Nurses hurried by, rolling carts squeaked, disembodied voices made announcements over PA speakers. I wanted to find the waiting room, but my movement felt guided by something intangible, a force pulling me in certain directions. Just as I fixated on the path that might lead to my family, a telepathic voice sounded within me. Pay attention to this individual." The authority in that thought was undeniable, so I looked where it guided me. That's when I saw him. A man, dressed not in typical hospital scrubs but in ordinary attire. A jacket, dress pants, more like an office outfit. He was racing down the corridor as though he had one mission: to reach the operating rooms quickly. In that instant, my vision sharpened beyond normal human capacity, transforming me into an observer with the clarity of a high-powered lens. I could see every strand of his hair, the distinct color of his irises, even the subtle lines on his face. Then another wave of telepathic awareness hit me. I heard his thoughts. "I must get there immediately, no time to lose." His urgency reverberated inside my mind. At the same moment, I sensed the confusion of another staff member who internally questioned the man's frantic approach, thinking, "He can't just storm into surgery. What does he think he's doing?" The entire situation felt surreal, like eavesdropping on a private broadcast no one else could hear. The man reached the double doors leading back into the surgical area. They slid open, and he disappeared inside. Then, as if my earlier goal had been forgotten, a powerful draw lifted me upwards. I felt pulled back from my vantage in the hallway, not by any physical means, but by an immense gravitational force that functioned on another level. Through floors and ceilings I rose, drifting upward until I broke past the rooftop. The city of Anchorage spread beneath me under a wide, open sky. Initially, I marveled, "I don't feel cold. There's no wind on my skin. I'm in the open air, yet there's zero sensation of weather." Then the unseen energy shifted direction, propelling me forward horizontally. The landscape, a mixture of buildings, roads, just the sprawl of daily life, slipped away beneath me, more quickly than any plane ride I'd ever experienced. Before long, I reached an expanse of water over which Anchorage sits. But instead of continuing over the water's surface, I encountered a gaping darkness. It swallowed me like a cavern, a tunnel strewn with shadows. My speed accelerated, building toward the brightness that flickered at the distant end of this darkness. That single point of light grew, expanding until it consumed my entire field of vision. And suddenly, boom, I burst into an entirely new realm. If someone asked for a how-to tutorial on describing the indescribable, I couldn't do it justice. One moment, I was engulfed by the blackness. The next, I was in a place so different it stunned my senses. The first impression was dryness, an arid, rocky terrain that looked entirely alien compared to Alaska's environment. Where am I? I recall glancing down, expecting to see my legs or feet set upon dusty ground. But there was nothing, no physical limbs in my line of sight. I felt intact, as though I still possessed a body, yet it had shed its normal material shape. I noticed, with a hint of irony, that the environment felt neither hot nor cold, which hardly seemed possible in a rocky desert-like place. Moments later, another telepathic voice called out from my left side, "Follow me!" I turned and saw a man ascending a loose, craggy embankment. His hair was a deep, dark color, pulled back in a simple tie. He wore a rough, off-white garment, something reminiscent of ancient times, along with leather sandals bound around his calves. Instinctively, I thought, that's not who I imagined might greet me in an afterlife. But I followed. How could I not? Something in his words compelled me. In a blink, I was behind him, climbing the same slope, though I never felt my feet touch the ground. The larger terrain fell away, morphing into something brand new. Instead of desert conditions, I now saw a scene of indescribable lushness. Green grasses shimmered under a light that radiated from within every blade, every leaf. Flowers that glowed and sparkled in hues I'd never seen before. Trees with effervescent leaves that seemed to pulse with life. It almost felt like stepping behind the scenes of normal reality into a realm where color, light, and energy exist on a more vibrant frequency. My guide, as I started calling him in my mind, continued forward. I wanted to feast my eyes on everything. Each petal and each blade spoke of creation's artistry. "This place is unbelievably beautiful," he urged. "Follow me." And again I was abruptly brought right behind him. Now we stood on the bank of a radiant river, the water itself glistening as though lit from within by a million tiny suns. Across that river, I spotted a group of figures whose faces made my heart lurch. My father, who passed away when I was just 7, my brother, who died in a car accident, and older relatives I'd only heard stories about. They greeted me with unrestrained joy, though no words were spoken. Their expressions, their energy, and the intangible sharing of emotion told me everything. "We are so happy you're here." Speechless, I yearned to cross over, to join them in that shimmering radiance. But a gentle prompting from my guide kept me from giving in to that longing right away. "We must go elsewhere first." Torn between the jubilation of that family reunion and the pull of my guide's directive, I felt an internal swirl. Yet I had no power to roam about as I wished. I seemed to move according to a purposeful design that carried me forward. So I followed him along the riverbank, taking in the unbelievably immaculate surroundings. Everything breathed light, as if existence here was fueled by a luminous core. Soon, the path curved into a wide clearing where a grand structure stood, alabaster white, reminiscent of Roman or Greek temples, with towering columns and wide entry steps. My guide ascended those steps in a fluid motion. I was right behind him, noticing other beings milling about, some entering this majestic place, some leaving, each radiating an aura of warmth. Inside, an immense hall presented itself. Multiple rows of shelves soared to the rafters, stacked with scrolls and books that glowed with an otherworldly shimmer. Long tables lined the corridor-like space, and I noticed others examining these texts intently. My guide whispered to my consciousness, "Here is where the Book of Life is kept, but we won't remain here." I had scarcely begun to marvel at the scale before I was directed to a smaller passage in the back. We moved into a shorter hallway, then entered a cozy, oval-chambered area, reminiscent of a conference room. Arranged around a center table, a circle of luminous beings awaited, as if they'd known exactly when we'd arrive. A wave of recognition startled me. Even though I couldn't recall their individual names, I felt as though I knew them intimately. Their faces shone with kindness and acceptance, like dear friends or mentors. My guide stated that we would be reviewing my life. Suddenly, the center of this table, the portion that appeared transparent, became a swirling display, almost like a holographic projection. Images from my entire existence began to play out, from my earliest toddler days to the present. It wasn't just pictures, it was complete re-experiencing. I felt every emotion I had ever felt: joy, sadness, excitement, fear. More astonishingly, I also felt the emotional responses of those I had interacted with. The surge of empathy was overwhelming. If I had ever offered a small kindness to someone, I now witnessed how it lifted their spirits, sometimes leading them to their own acts of generosity. In turn, that positivity spread outward like ripples in a boundless pond. Conversely, I also witnessed every shortcoming or hurtful word I had inflicted, as well as the way it weighed on the recipients. But there was no external condemnation. The entire process felt instructive, an ultimate guide to understanding how thoughts and behaviors shape lives far beyond what the eye can see. I learned that we shape the world in ways we rarely suspect. One fleeting gesture, one quiet word can echo for days, months, years, possibly lifetimes. It was a remarkable step-by-step tutorial on cause and effect, revealing how each choice feeds into a grand tapestry of outcomes. I had no sense of time, only the magnitude of the lessons unfolding. When the review concluded, the energy in the room changed. I sensed they were giving me a choice: remain in this realm or return to my earthly life. They seemed to caution that if I went back, there were future events set in motion, though not all were absolute because human free will can always reorder destinies. I glimpsed these future possibilities in another breathtaking montage, but I can't recall the details now. Something occurred, a gap in memory, so I only remember up to the point where they said, "Some of these events will happen with certainty if you choose to return." Then, almost as if the narrative jumped forward in time, I found myself alone with my guide in a smaller space. He spoke of my family, telling me to look upon what was happening in the waiting room. Suddenly, I had a window into that hospital area. There were my spouse and children and a doctor, still scrubbed up, hovering at the doorway with a somber demeanor. My daughter looked especially heartsick. I saw her silently pleading in prayer, "Don't let Mum be gone." The sight of her tears felt like a sharp blade through my chest. In that instant, it was as if every ounce of maternal love surged forward. I desperately wanted to reassure her, to hold my children close. That wave of emotion ignited a realization. I cannot remain in this peaceful dimension. I love it here, but responsibilities still tether me to earth. I wouldn't let my children stumble through childhood without a mother. I told my guide, I must go back. It felt as if an entire choir of souls vibrated with warmth, supporting my decision while acknowledging the heartache of departing their realm. My guide assured me I would have evidence, a confirmation that this was real. Yet my memory would cloud over many specifics, particularly about the future glimpses. Then, everything went blank. I remember no transitional journey, no flight back through the swirling tunnel. The immediate next frame of awareness was in a recovery room, opening my eyes to see my children and spouse by the hospital bed. My mind felt oddly split. A part of me was groggy, uncertain of the physical details, like where exactly the incision was located, or why my abdomen felt swollen. But the higher consciousness from that near-death moment remained crystal sharp. Love and peace overflowed my awareness, an indescribable sense that I had touched eternity and survived to speak of it. I spent over a week in the hospital, healing from what turned out to be a dramatic series of procedures. A surgical mishap had triggered intense bleeding, forcing a second operation by a different specialist. One day, this second physician came into my room to check on my progress. I recognized him instantly as the same anxious man I'd observed sprinting through the corridor, the one I had been instructed to pay attention to. I couldn't forget that face, those eyes. He wore his professional attire now, but the cosmic jolt of familiarity was undeniable. In that moment, I remembered the telepathic instructions. Pay attention to this man. When I was finally discharged, I still had to return periodically for follow-up visits. During one such appointment, I brought my spouse along. I needed confirmation of my experience, not just for myself, but so my family would also understand something extraordinary had happened. During the consultation, I cautiously asked this doctor if he had rushed in from elsewhere on the day of my operation, wearing ordinary clothes rather than surgical scrubs. His reaction was telling, "How could you have known that?" With some astonishment, he explained that indeed, he'd been in his office when an urgent call came through. The initial surgery had gone terribly wrong, an artery had been severed, and they needed someone's stat to save the situation. He had dashed through the hospital, tearing into the operating suite at the last minute. Hearing him speak confirmed every detail of that out-of-body vantage point I'd witnessed. The jacket, the normal pants, the frantic hurry. You might call it a behind-the-scenes revelation, or a step-by-step demonstration of how our physical senses intersect with metaphysical truths. The entire ordeal offered me a new perspective, what some might label the latest trends in near-death research, or the ultimate guide to spiritual awakenings. Yet it felt intimately personal. It wasn't a best practices manual for an afterlife, but an invitation to live with greater intention. Even in the hospital, I caught glimpses of the bigger picture, how prayers can form a collective force that transcends traditional barriers, or how mild acts of kindness can bloom into viral hacks for positivity, spreading to countless others in ways we never see. These lessons on human connectivity remain the most overwhelming part of the entire journey. Now, returning to normal life after that kind of event had challenges. Part of me existed in a state of serenity, brimming with that unconditional love I had felt in that luminous realm. Meanwhile, my day-to-day still demanded that I handle bills, chores, obligations, all the typical tasks of adulthood. In many ways, adjusting to my second chance was a how-to lesson in integration. I let my heart guide me toward deeper compassion, slower judgment, and more deliberate generosity, remembering the ripple effect I had seen in the life review. Like a tutorial in empathy, I tried focusing on the step-by-step changes that might infuse my daily schedule with more kindness, speaking gentle words to my children, offering help to neighbors, or even just delivering an earnest smile to a weary stranger. These minor efforts felt more significant because I knew even small gestures could be seeds of monumental change. Over time, I shared my near-death story with a few close friends. Regardless of their faith or worldview, Many found it comforting, a testament to something bigger than our day-to-day reality. Some asked for my expert tips on connecting with a spiritual dimension. I always responded humbly, "I didn't do anything in particular. This experience happened to me." But you can open your heart, reflect on your actions, and approach life with reverence. That's one of the best practices I can suggest. I never portrayed myself as a spiritual guru, or even that I had top 10 strategies for bridging life and death. Instead, my emphasis was on living fully, respecting the subtle interplay of our deeds, thoughts, and shared love. Every so often I think about that resplendent city of light, the arcs of color, the swirling energies of prayers. I recall the love in my father's smile and the warmth of my brother's presence. It's not that I don't grieve their absences in the physical world, but now I trust they haven't ceased to exist. They're in a realm just beyond our ordinary senses, trending now in a timeless dimension I only glimpsed. My own transformation involved letting go of petty anxieties, especially the ones that used to devour my energy. I absorbed that cosmic perspective that life is unbelievably brief, a kind of fleeting reflection in a vast cosmic mirror. Why waste that ephemeral gift on negativity when we can cultivate compassion? One powerful realization is that no matter where we stand on beliefs, religious or skeptical, kindness is never wasted. It infuses you, becomes part of your essence, and radiates outward. During my life review, I saw that acts of compassion aren't small. Each one has a behind-the-scenes effect on the tapestry of humanity. Seeing that effect changed my reactions to everyday situations. I found myself longing to align with the love I felt in that other realm, even if earthly life can be complicated and messy. My approach, ironically, grew more practical. Let's do something nice today, no matter how tiny, I'd think. It might echo in ways I'll never see. The memory of floating near the ceiling, hearing the frantic chaos in that operating room, remains surreal. One might wonder about the latest trends in medical phenomena or shrug it off as a mind trick. But the plain truth, from my vantage, is that the consciousness we carry transcends the body. We are more than flesh and bone. Images of that swirling darkness turning into radiant light, the corridor, the powerful expansion of vision, the telepathic voices. It all loops in my dreams sometimes. Initially, I was afraid people would dismiss these stories, calling them illusions or hallucinations from medication. Yet the proof I was granted, the knowledge of the second surgeon's arrival, the hallway scene I had no normal way of observing, rooted my experience in something beyond random synapses firing in the brain. Occasionally, I've been asked, what's the step-by-step for a spiritually illuminated life? Or, how do I replicate what you experienced? My honest answer is that it wasn't a how-to scenario. I wasn't practicing any specific meditation or performing a top 10 strategies for astral travel. The event simply unfolded while I was in that precarious space between life and death. If there is an ultimate guide to glean from it, it's to remain open, to act with love, and to not fear death as an end. If you let go of the dread and cultivate acceptance, life itself becomes more precious. That has become my easy method for daily peace. My family's perspective also changed. My spouse, once skeptical but loving, witnessed enough evidence through my recollection of the second surgeon's dash to the OR. Over time, the story melded into our family lore. My daughter admits that, as a young child, she intuitively prayed with fierce desperation during those tense hours. Knowing her prayer might have been a vital link in the chain that pulled me back. That's something we both treasure. If there's a behind-the-scenes operation in the universe, it responds to the energies we send out. Combined prayers can become a formidable wave. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I reflect on that view from the top of the hospital, watching the city roll by as I soared. Fear never factored in. My transition from hospital to tunnel to luminous city felt like a cosmic tutorial in trust. If I had to structure it as a best practices approach for personal growth, first, let your consciousness dwell on love and kindness. Second, remain humble in the face of life's unpredictability. Third, realize you are never truly isolated. There is an interconnected web, seen and unseen. These recollections span thousands of details, but they all circle back to one main insight. we are so much more than the roles we play, the jobs we do, or the goals we chase. My profession as a physical therapist always hinged on supporting people through pain and limitations. Ironically, from that vantage in the hospital, I learned that the real therapy extends deeper. Love, empathy, the intangible healing we extend with every gentle gesture. Yes, medical knowledge is crucial, but there's a parallel dimension of emotional and spiritual care that can be just as transformative. Since returning from that brink, I developed fresh appreciation for the small wonders. A child's laughter, a sunrise's glow, the breezy hush of leaves. It might sound cliché, but each is an offering of that same light I saw in the other world. These joys are trending now in my daily life as anchors of gratitude. Instead of seeing chores and errands as tedious, I sometimes see them as opportunities to share good energy. That might sound corny, but when I recall the ripple effect from my life review, even a cheerful word to a cashier could spark a good mood that passes on to the next person in line. Perhaps you want a tutorial or a step-by-step approach to activating kindness in your life. Start with sincerity. Approach someone with genuine warmth. Then, do it again the next day. Seek out volunteer opportunities, maybe a local food drive or supporting a neighbor in need. Check in on relatives. Write an encouraging note. These easy methods might feel humble, but they can be surprisingly meaningful. My near-death sojourn taught me that we often underestimate how powerful each moment of compassion can be. People sometimes ask about the future glimpses. I can't recall the exact details that the guides showed me, but I sense certain highlights, my children's significant life milestones, hints about moves or career changes, or potential hardships that might arise in the world. Yet the specifics remain fuzzy. The best conclusion I can draw is that life's blueprint is partly shaped by divine architecture and partly shaped by our ongoing choices, our free will. In every second, we have top 10 strategies to choose from: love, anger, joy, sadness, bitterness, compassion, isolation, connection, fear, forgiveness. Our daily existence becomes an interactive composition of those choices. In summary, my experience stands as a testament that consciousness flows beyond the threshold of physical life. The drama in the operating room was real and urgent, but so was the drama in that brilliant realm of indescribable beauty. Both carry lessons. During the surgery, the best practices of the medical staff were unquestionably necessary for my survival. Meanwhile, in that luminous city, an ultimate guide for spiritual clarity was offered, shaped by unconditional acceptance and knowledge. It's like the flipping sides of a coin. On one side, corporeal humans try everything: viral hacks from advanced procedures or trending now surgical techniques to keep a body alive. On the other side, dynamic energies of love and acceptance greet us when the body fails. The biggest transformation for me personally is that I approach life with a sense of reverence, each day a fresh canvas. I remain mindful that the words I speak, the thoughts I cultivate, and the little gestures I make could have consequences I might never see. Yet they matter immensely. The life review taught me that we're all interconnected, not in a superficial rhetorical sense, but deeply intertwined, each life brushing up against countless others. If someone were to ask me for behind-the-scenes secrets about what happens after death, I'd say, it's less about secrets and more about unconditional inclusion. Love pervades in every corner, shaping the environment itself. Even the architecture, the luminous library, the pristine river, the vibrant meadow, felt like love made visible. That place never seemed tangible in the sense of bricks and mortar, but stable in its beauty and energy, a testament to the idea that home transcends just physical walls. Comparing that realm to everyday existence can be tricky. Here, we deal with heartbreak, injustices, illusions. Over there, I felt entirely safe, adored, free. No wonder so many who experience near-death phenomena talk about not wanting to return. Yet for many of us, responsibilities call us back. Children, spouses, parents, friends, missions unfulfilled. In my case, it was the echo of my daughter's tearful prayer that awakened the fierce desire to return, to be present. That maternal love was unstoppable, more compelling than any comfort in the afterlife. And so, I came back. Even though over the years I might forget small daily struggles from that period, I have never forgotten the fullness of that unconditional acceptance. I strive to incorporate it into my daily interactions. I try to do it quietly. No fanfare, no chest-thumping displays of enlightenment. This journey is personal, and personal journeys often resonate best when shared with sincerity rather than spectacle. Perhaps that's the best I can do. Encourage others to see their own potential, to remember that our negative stories or regrets can be rewritten. We can all harness that hint of unconditional love, weaving it into the daily grind. Additionally, I reflect on the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is reading about near-death experiences or hearing my story. Wisdom is applying its lessons, practicing compassion, showing empathy, remembering that each soul we encounter has significance. While I wouldn't wish a life-threatening crisis on anyone, I do recognize that times of crisis can catapult us into deeper awareness. In a sense, there's a tutorial or step-by-step process built into adversity. When life places us at a crossroads, we discover what truly matters to us. If I had to compile a quick set of top 10 strategies gleaned from my experience, they might read something like this, though I use these categories loosely. Embrace gratitude. Start each day by acknowledging something you're thankful for: your breath, your body, someone you love. Cultivate compassion. Extend a hand to others in small, consistent ways. Practice forgiveness. This can be a huge release, freeing you from binding resentments. Nurture love. Let your relationships be watered with kind words, patience, and honesty. Live with presence. Notice the little details of your life: sights, sounds, textures. Align thoughts and actions. Remember the ripple effect from my life review. Your every deed matters. Seek authenticity. Own your mistakes, learn from them, and move onward. Cherish family and friends. Our relationships may transcend physical existence. Keep hope alive. Even in hardship, remember that outcomes can shift. Honor the mystery. You don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes letting go of certainty opens you to deeper truths. While these may not be a foolproof how-to for spiritual enlightenment, they represent a basic framework that keeps me aligned with the lessons gleaned from that experience. Over time, I've heard from others who share their own near-death stories, forming a tapestry of accounts. Some details vary, but a recurring theme is the intensity of love and learning on the other side. It might be trending now to dismiss these accounts or to label them as simple neurological events. Everyone is free to interpret. All I know is I lived it, and it was real in a way more vivid than many day-to-day interactions. Ultimately, my story is a personal testimony about the depth of human existence, the resilience of the spirit, and the boundless capacity for love in unseen dimensions. If you're searching for an ultimate guide to purpose, my humble suggestion is to cultivate love here and now. That's the step-by-step approach that resonates most deeply with me. Whether you accept my narrative on a literal level or see it as an allegory, the principle stands. We possess profound influence on one another through the simplest actions. Now, as I settle back into the rhythms of everyday life, I keep a piece of that luminous realm in my heart. The recollection of being free of my body, drifting through the hospital, the city, that dark tunnel, emerging into overwhelming splendor. These visions are part of me. The life review, with all its revelations about how we affect each other, underlines my every choice. The fervent prayers from beloveds, weaving musical notes that soared upward, always remind me there's more to this reality than meets the eye. Love gave me the impetus to return. Love compels me to strive for kindness daily. And love, in its purest form, is what I believe truly connects us, across time and space, across life and death, weaving through everything. Sometimes I still feel that call beckoning me, especially in moments of silent contemplation or just before drifting off to sleep. A gentle voice resonates. Remember, keep sharing what you learned. And so, in telling this extended tale, I do my best to pass on the message without sounding like I have all the answers. I'm just another traveler who briefly glimpsed an incredible expanse. If you find meaning in it, let it inspire you to love more fully, to help more readily, to cherish what you have, and to believe that none of us walk this journey alone. Because in the space beyond these everyday illusions, I felt total belonging, a belonging that radiated through every step I took. I hope that same belonging finds its way into your life.